So welcome everyone to our GoodWe PLUS International GoodWe PLUS program. This is the first module, and today we're going to go through our product and portfolio at GoodWe. My name is Theo, and I will guide you through this one and the next module. And with us we have Lindeve and David Havenga from South Africa, and they will host the webinar and also help you answering, or help us answering some questions, some of your questions. If you have any questions during the webinar, please post them in the Q&A section. So in the Zoom application, there should be a button somewhere that says Q&A, and there you can post your questions. And this way we can better keep track of what you're asking and what we already answered. So this is the layout of the GoodWe PLUS program. So the GoodWe PLUS program consists of 3 modules. The first one is the portfolio and application. I'm sorry now for the dates here. This is actually from the last one. The second module is about commissioning, and this will be on Thursday, so day after tomorrow. And the third module will be on troubleshooting, and then David will be hosting this module, and this will be on Tuesday, the day after, or the week after, which is, let me check quickly, sorry, the 19th of October. And all webinars are hosted via our Zoom app, and we do recommend that you use a PC. It's also possible to connect with your phone or some tablet, but sometimes the questions and such doesn't show up correctly. So it's more recommendable to use a PC. Each module consists of a presentation and a few chapters following some questions. And to pass a module, you need to have 70% correct answers. And in case some technical issue arises, then you can let us know and we can send you a Google form so that you can answer the questions through that. After completing all modules, so after completing all 3 modules, then you will receive an email with an assessment of the program to see if you passed, or in case you just need to repeat 1 or 2 modules. So what is the GoodWe PLUS program? The GoodWe PLUS is a installer program that we have for our customers. It's basically to provide you with more knowledge about our products and also give you some additional benefits. So for example, you also get this automatic free warranty extensions for some inverters, and we have some technical additional trainings. Now we're also launching a GoodWe community platform that will have a special department for, or area for, only our GoodWe PLUS members. How to become a GoodWe PLUS installer. So to become a GoodWe PLUS installer, there are a few steps that you need to take. The first thing is that you need to set up a company account in the SEMS portal, which is our monitoring portal. It's not the same as an end user account, but you need to have a company account. And to do this, please contact our sales to get this organizational account. When you have this registered in the SEMS portal, then you need only to take part in all 3 modules of a GoodWe PLUS training. Also pass with 70% correct answers on each module, and then after that you should automatically be upgraded. When you're a GoodWe PLUS installer, you become a free warranty extension on your all on-grid inverters up to 20 kilowatt that are installed within Europe, so EU, UK, Norway, or Switzerland. Moreover, the plants or inverters, they need to be connected to the SEMS portal. Otherwise, we can't check which inverters are covered by this warranty or not. Moreover, yes. How to know if you're a GoodWe Plus installer? There are a few ways to check this. Either you log into your SEMS account on your computer or on your phone. We also have a SEMS app. If you log into your computer, you can easily check this by first pressing here on Management on the top corner. Sorry, give me 1 second. Now I think you should see my pointer as well. So on the top menu head, you can press on Management and then on Warranty. In case you are a GoodWe Plus installer, it will says approved units with 10 years warranty up in the right-hand corner. In case you're not yet a GoodWe Plus installer, it will says how to get 10 years warranty for free. That's an easy way to check that. In case you check it on your app, it's a similar procedure. You log into your SEMS account. On the bottom menu, press on the most right-hand icon here called Discovery, and then you select Warranty, and then you can see the banner here on the bottom line of the window. And in case it says how to get 5+5 warranty for free, you're not yet a GoodWe Plus installer, but if it says approved unit with 5+5 warranty, then you're already a GoodWe Plus installer. And also important, what I wanted to say before, this warranty extension doesn't apply to already installed inverters, but to the inverters you install after you become a GoodWe Plus installer. So an overview of what we're gonna go through today is firstly a short company introduction. After that, we will talk a bit about our residential portfolio, going further to our C&I and utility scale inverters. And after that, also showing our energy storage products. And lastly, our monitoring and communication devices. So basically our SEMS portal and our additional devices that you can connect to the inverters. So shortly about the company. So GoodWe is a rather young company from China. We have our production facilities and headquarters in Suzhou, close to Shanghai in China. But we also have branches all over the world. And for the EMEA region, we have our headquarters here in Germany, in Munich. And from here, we cover Europe, Middle East, and the African region. So the headquarters is here. When you connect your inverters to the SEMS portals, the servers for the EMEA region are also located in Germany. But moreover, it's a rather large company. We have very many employers, especially in the R&D section. So we focus a lot on developing, on the R&D and trying to have up-to-date products. My screen is, no. Here are a few awards that we achieved, that we're specifically proud of. For example, we have here the Wood Mackenzie Award for the #1 hybrid storage inverter supplier in 2019. We also won the PV Magazine Award in the same year. Our after-sales service is present in many different countries and also in many different languages. Here is an overview of all local languages and countries that we have a local hotline in, and how the after-sales looks like. I know since this is an international GoodWe Plus webinar, I think most of you are probably located either in South Africa or in other African regions, or in other countries than these displayed here. So mostly the number you will have to call is the international one, or the UK one, or the African number. And here are also our shortly about our product range. We have inverters from 700 watt up to 250 kilowatt. And before we start looking into our residential portfolio, we will have our first quiz. Let's see if it pops up. Yes. So first quiz or first question is, where is the European GoodWe main office located? Second question is, how many correct answers are necessary to complete the GoodWe Plus training? This should be good to know. Also, which requirement is necessary for inverters to get the GoodWe Plus warranty extension? This will give you a total of 10 years warranty extension. So let's dive into our residential portfolio. So firstly, a short overview of our total portfolio. At GoodWe, we only manufacture string inverters, so there are no central inverters. However, our portfolio ranges from 0.7 kilowatt up to 250 kilowatt in utility scale. To make it more comprehensive, we try to divide it in different segments. So we have the residential segment that we call it up to 15 kilowatt. Of course, there are some residential application that requires more than that. Between 17 and up to 136 kilowatt, we have the CNI section. And then over that, at 250 kilowatt, we have utility scale inverters. We do also offer storage inverters, both hybrid inverters that are compatible with both PV and batteries, and AC coupled inverters that are retrofit connected on the AC side, which is a battery inverter. Now, lately, we also enter the storage section, and we do produce our own batteries now, and we also have a all-in-one storage with battery and inverter all-in-one. And to combine all of this, we also offer a energy management system as well as additional communication devices. So for our residential inverters, we have mainly 3 inverters that we sell in the EMEA region. It ranges from XS, which is a single phase 1 MPPT string inverter, up to 3 kilowatt. So you have different models of this series from 700 watt up to 3 kilowatt. This is very compact and very small, which is nice. You can see here, it weighs under 6 kilos. And I will also demonstrate the size of it later. The DNS inverter is the next step from the XS inverter. It is about double the size and comes with 2 MPPTs, and this ranges from 3 up to 6 kilowatt. Later or after that, we enter the 3-phase inverters, and this is called SCT Generation 2, and this ranges actually from 4 up to 25 kilowatt, but within the residential segment, we have it between 4 and 50 kilowatt. And the difference here also for the residential STT G2 inverters is that it has a maximum DC input of 100 volt instead of 1000 volt instead of 1100, which is for the 17 kilowatt up to 25. Also, since this is meant for residential applications, all of these inverter comes any naturally cooled with natural convection. However, the STT Generation 2 has some fans on the backside from the models that are 8 kilowatt or higher. And this can be good to know in case you plan on installing a larger inverter. Yes, apart from that, they all come with standard Wi-Fi, but it's also possible to add additional communication modules such as LAN, 4G, or Bluetooth. You could also connect additional devices together over RS-485 or connect them to a smart meter of some type. Our residential inverter also comes with a built-in export limit function. So in some countries, you don't want to export the energy into the grid, or you're not even allowed to. And then you need some kind of restriction on the inverter. For our DNS and XS inverter, this is completely built into the inverter. And this can be realized with special current transformers that you can get from us. And those current transformers you connect directly to the inverter and then click them on just before the house meter or the grid connection point, and then they can measure the power flow here to let the inverter know to ramp down or increase the power. And this way, the inverter will make sure that only the loads are supplied and no power are exported beyond this point. For the three-phase inverter, this is not completely built in. The function is still built in, but you need to have a smart meter, which is slightly larger than the CTs. So it's an additional device here to which the CTs are connected, and then the smart meter is connected to the inverter. As I said before, they are all fanless, which is really nice when you have it in residential applications. However, the SCTG2 are not fan or are fan cool from 8 kilowatt and higher. However, the fans are also designed in a way that they do not produce so much noise. Here you see the XS series. Some of the key selling points for this one is its compact size. If you compare it to the amount of power it can produce. So up to 3 kilowatt, it's still the size of an A4 paper and weigh only under 6 kilos. Moreover, it also has a very high efficiency, and all of our inverters can achieve a AC overloading of up to 10%. This means that you get, basically they can produce 10% more output than the nominal power rating. So a 3 kilowatt inverter can then output 3.3. Also, the cover and everything is all in die-cast aluminium, so there's no plastic cover or such. It's a solid design, and that is also built to last. Here you can see the size of the XS inverter compared to a few others that also have 3 kilowatt of output power, one phase inverter and one MPPT that are on the market. As you see, they are considerably heavier and also much larger. So this is only 7.7 liters, size of an A4 paper. We look at the DNS series. This is quite similar to the XS, also compact design. This has 2 MPPTs and is this sort of larger single phase inverter. It also has a very wide voltage range, so it has a start voltage of 80 volt up to 550, which means that it can start producing energy much earlier in the day and also stop producing later in the day. Also, as I said before, all of our inverters are made of die-cast aluminium. Our inverter also, this is valid for all string or grid tie inverters, that they have an IP rating of at least IP65, and they also have an operating temperature range of up to -30, from -30 up to +60 Celsius. So this means that you can install them outside and also in some harsh conditions. So if you live in northern countries or very southern countries, then you will notice that this can be good to have an inverter operating at -30 degrees. And also if you live in warmer climates, then 60 degrees is useful. Going to our SCTG2 inverter. As I said, this is our only 3-phase inverter for residential applications. It goes from 4 up to 25 kilowatt. It has 2 MPPTs, also has a wide voltage range and much higher input voltage compared to the single phase inverters, of course. So it has between 180 up to 850 volts of the MPPT range. Here you see how it is to connect them. The STTG2 series comes in various models, and the different models all have different number of inputs. They all have 2 MPPTs, but several string inputs. So here you see the bottom side. So you see that it's very easy to connect everything. You have the AC output, the communication devices here, DC switch, and just the PV inputs. So here you see the different ranges from 4 up to 10 kilowatt. You have 2 string inputs, 1 per MPPT. And then when you increase it, you get more and more string inputs per MPPT. This is also optional or possible to choose with or without a LCD screen. Otherwise, in case you don't choose the LCD screen, you of course need to configure it with the app. But also, if you have an inverter with the screen, you can also commission it with the app. This could be quite good to know. Our communication devices for residential, we'll go into this deeper a bit later on, but it's good to know what options are available and also which one you should use for which inverter. So for 3-phase inverter, you can connect several of them to one data logger, and this creates a larger system then of several inverters, and you can connect then a smart meter for power export control or to the internet to monitor all inverters through this data logger. For single phase inverters, they are often operated as single units, and then you have several different internet communication options. So you have Wi-Fi, you have LAN, you have 4G and Bluetooth. There are also some different solutions for load monitoring and power export. I mentioned earlier that you can either use the special CTs from GoodWe for the XS and DNS inverters to connect them directly, or you can use the smart meter for the STTG2 inverter. So a short recap and overview of the key points: high efficiency of the inverters, flexible design with multiple MPPTs. You also have the integrated export control to only have self-consumptions, for example. They also have a solid compact design in die-cast aluminum and are lightweight and compact, which makes them easy to install. As well as the fanless design, apart from the STTG2 that has fans from 8 kilowatt and higher. And of course, the SEMS monitoring platform is included for all inverters. And now we come to our second quiz before we go and talk about our CNI and utility scale inverters. So first question is, from which power class of the STTG2 is fan cooling included? I hope I mentioned this several times. Apart from this, all residential inverters are without any fan. Second question is, how many MPPTs does the GoodWe DNS inverter have? This can also be distinguished from the name. So the D stands for actually how many MPPTs it has. The size of the XS inverter can also be compared to something. We compared it to something. Also, the minimum operating temperature of the STTG2 was also mentioned, as well as the maximum temperature, and also the maximum DC input voltage. So we'll let you have a few minutes to answer the questions, and then we'll go and talk about our CNI applications. Okay, I think we can continue. And of course, in case you don't have time to answer the questions, we will also post the link to the Google form in the chat, so you can access that and answer the questions through that link. Okay, so now we go and talk about our CNI inverters and also shortly about our utility scale inverters. So our CNI application is between 17 up to 136 kilowatt. Here you see a bit of a wider range of inverters. So this one should be familiar. This is the STTG2, which is also for residential application, but between 70 and 25 kilowatt, we sort of categorize it in the CNI section. Between in this range, it also has a slightly higher DC input voltage of 1100 volt. However, the rest of the specification is the same as before. After the STT, we have the SMT series between 25 up to 36 kilowatt. This has an additional MPPT, so up to 3 MPPTs does this one come with. And then in case you want larger, then we have the MT series between 50 and 80 kilowatt. And this one has 4 MPPTs. And then if we go up to the largest inverter between 100 up to 136 kilowatt, it has between 10 and 12 MPPTs, a bit depending on the range. The MT series also comes in additional models that are specific for use with high power modules. So as some of you know, the newer PV modules produced, they operate at a very high current, and then we have special inverters to cope with that, so to say. Also, what you can see here, the higher you go in the range, you get additional protection, optional protection features that you can add. So for example, you have the PID recovery function, potentially induced degradation, which happens to the modules over time. And then we have a function to reduce this to prolong the lifetime of the PV modules. The AFCI is a arc fault circuit interrupter, which can interrupt arcs happening on the DC side, and also a humidity detection for the MT and the HT series. If we're looking at our utility scale inverters, you see that they look very similar to the HT series here. They're also called HT, but it's a much higher range. So here you have only two, 250 kilowatt and 225 kilowatt and 250 kilowatt, sorry. The other difference here is that you have a much higher AC output voltage. So here you operate at 800 volt. So in most cases, you will then need a transformer station when using these. The HT series, both for utility scale and CNI, also has a very high input current of 30 amps. And this might also increase in the future to also cope with the coming new modules. These inverters also has a much higher DC input voltage, up to 1500 volt, and the IP protection rating is also IP66, so slightly higher than the CNI section. With up to 12 MPPTs, which is in our HT series, when you have both utility and CNI application, it's very useful to have many MPPTs. This can increase your yield depending on the geographical location and the design of your system. So for example, often it could be useful to have south and west-east locations, but also if you have rooftop installations, there could be things in the way that produce a shadow over the panels, and in this case, having additional MPPTs would optimize the system much better, which would then also give a better yield. But also other physical mismatch between the modules. So in case you have dirt on the modules, you have hotspots, shading or such, then additional MPPTs will help you optimize the system. So this is basically the benefit of using string inverters instead of central inverters. Our CNI inverters also has a very compact design. So if you're comparing the output power here of 80 kilowatt, it's sort of the same as some competitors that the size of the competitors in the same size range, they have a much lower output power. And this, on the same hand, the output power here can be compared to our SMT inverter, which then has a much lower weight and also is about half the size. As I mentioned before, also in the residential segment, our CNI inverters, they also has a function or feature called AC overloading. This means that they can produce 10% additional AC power compared to the nominal power rating. So in this case, if you have a PV system here producing 1.5 megawatt of DC power, in a normal case, the inverter would then maximum, let's say a 1 megawatt inverter would then at max be able to produce 1 megawatt of AC power, capping this at 1 megawatt. Our inverter, however, could then operate at 1.1 megawatt, even if it's rated for 1 megawatt of AC power. So you get a bit more AC power for the same amount of inverter, basically. The PID recovery board is also integrated. I explained this shortly before. The PID is potential induced degradation, which is a potential between the modules and the earth or the ground. And this causes a degradation over time and shortens the lifetime of the PV modules. To cope with this, you can install external anti-PID boxes. However, this costs additional investment cost, of course, but also additional installation time and cost for that. In our inverter, it's integrated into the inverter. So during the nighttime, the inverter will then apply a reverse voltage between the ground and the PV modules, which would then sort of recover this degradation that occurred during the day. And this is especially important in humid conditions or at high altitudes. So if you have a PV installation installed, maybe floating PV, or in some humid climate, then this is even more noticeable. Our inverters also has a very high temperature adaptability. So this means that they can operate at a very high ambient temperature. So here you see a test between a competitor, the blue line, and our GoodWe MT inverter, the red one. So here you see the nominal power on the y-axis and the ambient temperature on the x-axis. As you see, it's for many inverter brands, it's quite common now that they can have this 10% AC overload, so they could operate then at 110% of the nominal power. Our inverter or our whole CNI portfolio could then operate at up to 100%, up to 45 degrees Celsius, and our MT inverter up to then here 45 degrees Celsius, it operates at 110% of the nominal power, and then it starts to derate to not overheat, but then still at 50 degrees Celsius, it still operates at 100% of the nominal power. Here you see some communication devices for our CNI and utility inverters. So it depends a bit if you have a device for multiple inverter units or if it's a single unit. For single units, it's similar as for the residential applications. You can use Wi-Fi, LAN, 4G. It's also possible with load monitoring and power export. However, then you need to use a different device than in the residential, for the residential inverters, mainly because the AC power line has a much higher current. So you will need different kind of CTs, and therefore you need to have this box here. To connect multiple inverters, you can either choose to use RS-485 or a PLC power line communication. With RS-485, you also use the same box actually as here for load monitoring and power export. This means that you could also achieve this load monitoring and power export for several inverter units. So to one of these boxes, you can actually connect up to 60 inverters to one box, and they're all connected with RS-485 between the inverter in daisy chain. For PLC communication, then the inverters communicate over the AC line, and this is also possible to achieve with another communication box called the SEB3000. And with this one, you can connect up to 40 inverters over PLC communication. So to recap quickly, our CNI inverters, they also have a very robust, very solid design with low weight and compact, making them easy to install. They have full power operation up to 45 or 50 degrees Celsius. So 45 degrees Celsius is for our entire CNI portfolio, and 50 degrees Celsius is for the MT inverter. They also have this 10% extra AC power, and they all come with at least a IP65 protection. Now for our quiz. And then after that, we will talk about our energy storage products and our new batteries that we just launched. So first question is, what is the maximum ambient temperature for the MT inverter to operate at 100% of nominal AC power? This I mentioned several times. So it could operate at 110% up to 45 degrees, and then it started to derate after 45 degrees. Up to how many MPPTs does the GoodWe HT inverter have? And this one I also showed. The HT inverter is our largest CNI and also utilities inverter. And our GoodWe inverter is possible to install outside. This depends on the IP rating. So in case you have a IP65 rating or higher, then they could most likely be installed outside. However, we do recommend that there is some kind of cover protecting them from direct sunlight, which would then heat up the inverter and cause it to derate much quicker. Also to protect it from direct rainfall or such, to also prolong the lifetime of the inverter. What is the nominal AC output voltage of the GoodWe 250K HT inverter? So the 250K is the 250 kilowatt inverter, and this is our utility scale inverter. They usually have higher AC output voltage than the CNI inverters, and therefore you usually, in case you don't have a direct connection to the mid voltage grid, then you need a transformer. So our energy storage products consist of hybrid and AC coupled inverters. The hybrid inverters are, of course, the inverters that can be connected both to PV and batteries, and the AC couples are battery-only inverters that are retrofitted connected to the AC side. So first, let's have a look at our hybrid inverters. Here you see a very wide range. They all have different names, and also, as you saw before on the residential and CNI inverters, the names can be a bit confusing. However, for the hybrid inverters, it's quite easy because every inverter with an E in the name is a hybrid inverter. Here also you could divide them in all the first four are single phase hybrid inverters, and only the last one is a three-phase hybrid inverter, and therefore the T. So firstly, we have the EM and the ES. They both range from about 3 up to 5 kilowatt single phase inverters and are also compatible with low voltage batteries. The EM comes with the option, comes in two models, either with 1 or 2 MPPTs, and the ES always has 2 MPPTs. Also important to mention, for all inverters, they have no fans on the hybrid side. All are cooled with natural convection, since they're all meant also for residential applications. After the ES here, we have the ESA. This is a all-in-one solution. So the tower here is the battery rack, and then on top you have the inverter. This is between 5 up to 9.6 kilowatt. It's also single-phase inverter. Here the batteries is low voltage, but they're included, so no need to pair additional batteries to it. Also comes with 2 MPPTs, and all of these. Yeah, let's first talk about these two, and then I will mention about the backup load and such. The EH inverter is the only single-phase inverter compatible with high voltage batteries. So for example, the BYD batteries. It is one of our newer single-phase hybrid inverters and has 2 MPPTs and ranges between, similar to the rest, between 3.3 kilowatt up to 6 kilowatt. The ET here is a 3-phase inverter from 5 up to 10 kilowatt. Also, of course, compatible with high voltage batteries since it's a 3-phase inverter. 2 MPPTs, and what's here is the backup load and the max discharge power. This is a function that all of our hybrid inverter has, that they have a backup function. And as you see, most of them can output as much power in backup mode as they do in on-grid mode. The only difference here is the EM inverter that has a slightly less backup power. Also, you see most of them have an IP rating of 65. The only exception is the ESA, which is the tower with the batteries. And it's because the batteries doesn't have the IP65 rating. Here you have the AC coupled inverters. So these are the battery inverters, and mainly each hybrid inverter here has a corresponding AC coupled inverter. So you can say that each hybrid inverter also comes in a battery inverter version, and here are those. To know if it's a battery inverter, you can look for the B in the name. So if you see a B, it's a battery only inverter. The first one is the SBP inverter. This also single phase, similar to the BH. However, this one is compatible with low voltage batteries, and the BH is for high voltage batteries. They have similar ranges. This one is from 3.6 up to 5 kilowatt, and this is from 3 up to 6 kilowatt. The BT series here is the 3-phase inverter, so the corresponding inverter to the the three-phase hybrid inverter. Has the same range as that one, between 5 up to 10 kilowatt, also compatible with high voltage batteries. And something new that we are launching now soon in a few months, it's currently undergoing the beta test, is the BTC inverter. This is for CNI applications. It's a 50 kilowatt inverter, a single MPPT, and oh no, sorry, no MPPT, this is a battery inverter. We also have a new hybrid inverter looking like this that we will launch next year, and that one has a single MPPT. Yes, so this is for CNI application. 50 kilowatt also has the same features as the other ones. Here are a few key points for our energies or for our storage inverters. They have a slightly less temperature range than the CNI inverters, but from -25 up to +60 degrees Celsius. They can operate at full load up to 45 degrees Celsius. Most of them, as I said, apart from the combined solution, the ESA, the inverter tower, has a IP rating of 65 and can therefore be installed outside. The operating altitude rating might not be so relevant for most of you, but it also shows on the quality of the product. So in case it can operate at 4,000 meters, then it also shows that it's a good quality that is required at those heights. Also, as I said before, fanless cooling, so they make very little noise and can be installed both inside and outside. One of the key benefits is also that they are very easy to install, our storage inverters. It's a one-stop with all components provided. You get the mountain bracket, you get every pin terminals, you have the smart meter, the Wi-Fi module, and also the cables are pre-wired here. So you only need to cut the cable to the desired length and then connect it. So this makes it very smooth to install. Everything is included. However, no of our storage inverter has a display. So they're all commissioned with the app. For those of you who are new to the hybrid inverter concept, here's a short description of it. Basically, it's a grid connected inverter. It's not an off-grid inverter. So basically, it's a PV inverter with the possibility to connect a battery. Also additional for our inverters, which I will go into later, is that it has some backup output. This means you can choose some loads in your household to connect it here. And in case of a grid failure, this one will disconnect from the grid, but keep supplying the backup loads as long as you have enough power from the PV and the battery. Here are a few application possibilities, both for the hybrid inverters and also for the battery inverters. So in case you have a new hybrid installation, of course, you can install it with both battery and PV. For our EH and ET inverters, they also come as a battery ready solution. So you buy the inverter without the possibility to connect the battery, but then in the future you can upgrade it with a software activation code and then connect the battery at a later stage. You could also in some cases only connect a battery to your system in case here, for example, if you already have a PV installation to your house, you could connect a new hybrid installation or a hybrid inverter with both additional new PV and additional battery, or you can use the battery inverters to a already existing system where you only have PV to then connect some storage potential. So this is our AC coupled batteries. Here you can see the load prioritization, or the how the system is, the logic behind the system. So if we look from the PV side, where the energy go from the PV that's produced, then the inverter tries to prioritize your loads. And when the loads are fully covered, it charges the battery. And in case both the battery and the loads are already covered and the battery is fully charged, then the excess power is exported to the grid, in case you don't have set up a power export limit. From the load consumptions, it also firstly takes the power from the PV, secondly from the battery, and thirdly from the grid. And this is to optimize the self-consumption. This is one of our most liked features of our hybrid system. It's the integrated backup function. This means that when the grid fails, you still have some loads that is powered from the PV and the battery. So here you see a short diagram. Let's say here you already have a PV connected system. Here's the grid. Here are your loads, your household. Then you can install a additional PV system with our hybrid inverter or battery inverter. This is actually not necessary, but you can install this directly as well. And then you have here your household loads, and here are your backup loads, the battery and the PV system. In case the grid fails here, all these loads here will be disconnected, but the loads that are connected to the backup here will be keep on being supplied. It's possible to visualize it with this diagram here. So here you see the PV energy coming in, the energy from the battery. Here is the on-grid, and here's the backup output. So when the grid is functioning and working as normal, this switch here is closed. So this means that both the loads, these loads here, and the backup loads are supplied both from PV, from the battery, and from the grid. So then there's no distinction between the two division of the loads. But when the grid fails, this switch will open, disconnecting all the on-grid loads, and then the backup loads will be isolated from the grid and only supplied by the PV and the battery. It's also possible to achieve unbalanced output of the ET series. So when you have a three-phase inverter, you can have different loads connected to the different phases, and you can also control the power export function here so that you don't export more than your set value per phase as well. It's also possible here in the settings for our storage inverter to set the DoD level for both backup and normal operation. So you can choose the percentage here of how much usable battery you want to use when the grid is available, and you can choose the amount of power you want to reserve in the battery for those cases when the grid fails. So you know, for example, if grid failure is a big problem, then this one should be a bit more, to always keep a bit more backup power from the battery. But in case that doesn't happen so often, then it would be better to have a bit more battery when the grid is on. Our inverters are compatible with several different battery brands. It depends very much on which inverter. So to know which is compatible with your inverter, then the easiest way is to go to our website, and there you can download, here with this link, you can download a PDF document which states exactly which inverter and which battery is compatible with that inverter. And every time, this is frequently updated, so in case you have an old document like this saved on your computer, please make sure that you have the latest one in case we have added some new batteries to the list. This is a feature that's possible for the three-phase inverters, the three-phase storage inverters. It's possible to connect them in parallel with a communication box. This is the SEC1000S for storage. And with this one, you can connect up to 10 of the ET or BT inverters. The maximum capacity of a ET or BT inverter is 10 kilowatts. So with 10 of those, you could potentially have 100 kilowatt of storage inverters connected to a system. And this is the schematic of how it's connected. So here you see the master unit or the control box. Here are your loads connected. Here is the grid. So the loads here gets power from all inverters connected in parallel. Each inverter, however, needs to have its own PV system connected. So each inverter has 2 MPPTs, and there you connect your PV system. And each inverter also has its own battery. When the grid is on, the inverter are optimized so that it works as a single system, so to say. However, when the grid is disconnected, you see here the switch here, then each inverter will operate as a single system, as an isolated system. So then there's no possibility if, let's say, the battery from this one is dead and there's no PV here, the emergency loads connected to this inverter cannot be supplied by the second inverter, even if this one has additional battery and PV power. So it's important to know that when the grid is on, they can all operate together, but when the grid is off, they will be seen as isolated systems. Here you have an example installation of 6 ETs connected with a stack of BYD batteries. So here's the communication box. Here you have a more view of the size of it, and the ET inverters all has their battery stack here underneath. And I think this was installed in Turkey. So as a quick overview, it's the integrated advanced backup function. Also, if I didn't mention it, it has a 10 millisecond UPS level switching. It doesn't mean that it's a UPS system, but the switching time from the on-grid to the off-grid, in case the grid is disconnected, the switching to the backup loads are within 10 milliseconds. This means that you won't even notice it. So you have the frequency of the grid of 50 Hertz, that's 50 milliseconds. So with the switching time of 10 milliseconds, it's uninterrupted, so to say. Also, a flexible application, you can combine it with PV or battery. You can also have a battery-ready solution. You have built-in monitoring, so you can connect also the additional smart meter to both monitor the loads and also set the power export limit. And everything is included. The only thing not included, well, there's nothing not included, but everything is included. So the smart meter and every cables that you need are all included with the inverter. And therefore, it's also easy to install, and it has a high efficiency, which gives you a high energy yield. They all also have IP65 rating. The three-phase inverter also even has IP66 rating, which makes it possible to install outside as well. And as for all of our inverter, the SEMS monitoring portal is free of charge. Shortly about our batteries that we just started producing, we are aiming to launch a low voltage battery called the Lynx Home U, as well as a high voltage battery Lynx Home F. The Lynx Home U here is, both of them are lithium iron phosphate, so very safe chemical composition. They're also very easy to install. This Lynx Home U, some of you might have joined Intersolar. There we showcase the Lynx Home U. and it's very compact and slim. You can install several of them in parallel. So here you see how many you can install. So between 1 up to 6 of them, which would give you between roughly 5 and 30 kilowatt hours of power. Yes, before the quiz, I will just shortly also let you know about the Lynx Home F. This will launch in the early 2022, so coming very soon. This is a high voltage battery, and it's stackable in towers. So this one will be between 5 up to 16 kilowatt hours. And this one will of course be compatible with our 3-phase hybrid and storage inverters. So now let's launch the last quiz, and then we will talk about our monitoring portal and some communication devices as the last section. Okay, so first question is, what's the easiest way to know which battery is compatible with our GoodWe inverter? I mentioned that there is a list that you can check. And what is not included in the GoodWe storage inverter? This should be very clear. And also the switching time of the backup function I mentioned was the UPS level switching time. And also what is the maximum backup load capacity on the ET 10 kilowatt inverters. Maybe I did not mention this, but it's the same as the, yes, I did not mention this. However, I see some of you already know this. It's for all of our inverters, or not all of our, for most of our inverters, especially the ET inverter, it's 1/3 per phase of the total nominal capacity. So this means that if you have a 10 kilowatt inverter, you only have 1/3 of the power per phase that you can connect on the backup load. And question 5 is there an external switch box required for GoodWe backup function? This should be clear. And also how many ET and BT inverters can be connected in parallel. And here I also showed you an example of a few. So I'll give you a few more minutes to answer this, and in case you have any questions, please let me know. So we do have one question here about discussion of the connection of the backup loads of the inverter and to the grid. We went through this shortly. I can go back a bit and explain it a bit more thoroughly. I actually think that maybe this is easier to understand. So with the backup loads, there are actually 2 AC outputs on the bottom side of the inverter. One is then for the backup loads and one is for the normal AC loads for these ones. So here's the normal, it's not on the side, both are underneath, but basically there's one connection point for the AC load and one AC connection point for the backup loads. And when the grid is on, they are internally at the circuit board, they're all treated as the same output, so to say. So even the backup loads can be supplied in case you don't have any PV and no battery. The backup loads can still be supplied by grid electricity. So they're not external load, so to say. The only difference between the backup loads and the normal loads are when the grid fails. So when there's a grid shortage or outage, then this one here will disconnect. Let me. So this disconnects, and when this one is, this means that all those loads will be disconnected, but internally it will switch over to only supply the backup loads from the battery and the PV modules. And the reason why this one needs to disconnect from this one, this is in the grid codes of almost all countries, I would assume, because if the grid fails and someone needs to work on the grid to fix it, then they don't want your inverter to send out power here to the workers working on the grid. And therefore, it needs to disconnect from the grid, but this one makes it possible that you can separate some loads in your household and then connect, for example, your lamps, your TV, some Wi-Fi, some necessary loads that you can use. What's important is that you don't connect too much loads to the backup output. So if you have a stove, oven, maybe AC or heat pump, then this is not recommended to connect because they usually draw too much power for the backup output. I hope that answered your question. Okay, let's see. I think most have answered the questions. And yeah, I think everything should be clear. So let's now talk about our SEMS portal and the different communication devices that we have. First off, here's our SEMS portal. There are two versions of it. One version is the online one that you access through a web browser. The second one is an app that you can have on your Android or Apple phone. It's completely free of charge. You only need to, as an installer, you have an installer account, and to get this, you need to contact our sales, and they will set up the account for you. As an end user, either for you or for your customers where you install it, they can create this themselves, just logging into or going to the website. It looks very similar for the installers and the end users. As installer, you can also have access, or not access, but you can have a view of your installed plans that belongs to the end users. So this is the start page of the web browser, or the web version of our SEMS portal. So what's good here is that you see here in the list all of your plans. Here you also have some statistics to show in case how many of the plans that you have installed has a fault. Something is happening. There's maybe the Wi-Fi doesn't work anymore. Maybe something happened with the AC connection, etc. Then you can see it here and see what happened with the inverter. It's also possible to troubleshoot it from the portal. You can see which plans that are offline, which means that the internet connection is not working. The weighting here is also a type of error, so to say, similar to fault, less severe. And here you can also see how many that are online and working. So this is a useful tool both for end users to monitor their PV production, but also for installers to keep track of the installed plans and also to check in case something happened. To go into specific plans, you can click on one of the plans here in the list. This is the demo version. Everyone can actually access the demo version. You just log into the SEMS web page, and then on the top corner there's a link that you can click on which says SEMS demo version. Clicking there, you will see then here 3 plans, 2 residential and 1 with battery storage, and then you can have a look see how it looks. When you click on one of the plans, you get to this page. It's the page for the specific plant that you have. Here is a short system overview with some weather forecast and so on. Here you also see the latest measured power, and you can also see the state of charge of the battery. And here you also have some overview data of the plant, so to say. Here in this graph here, this is a graph of the total plant. So here you can see the PV production, the battery, export and import, as well as load consumption. And in case you have several inverters, the values here are accumulated. So you will see it for the total plant. In case you want to have a look at a single device, so let's say a single inverter, it's the section here on the bottom side. So here you will see which inverters that are, or devices that are connected to the plant. And then you can select them, and here you see some information. So you can see the serial number, the check code. You can see basically very detailed data. And clicking here on curve, you also get some more advanced graphs that are specific for this device. Clicking there, you will see this type of graph popping up, and here you can then select what you want to see and also the date. So here, for example, the current for PV input 1 is selected. So here you see then the current in that specific string, but you can also select the voltage, you can select the power, the AC current, AC frequency, work mode, etc. So there's really a range of different things you can see here, and you can also backtrack this. So in case, let's say a customer has a fault of the inverter and they say it has problem connecting to the portal, then you can, for example, go in here and check the RSSI strength, which is the Wi-Fi strength of the inverter. And then you can check that, okay, maybe the Wi-Fi has a really weak signal, and therefore it has connection issues. So it's also a tool for installers to troubleshoot a specific plant without needing to go to the site directly. It's also possible to integrate a weather station and additional devices. To have this, you need a special device, which I will let you know later on. But in SEMS, it will look like this when it's integrated. So here you can have a irradiance sensor, for example. So you see the irradiation. You can have the temperature displayed, wind speed, etc. And it can also be displayed here in the graphs. These are a short overview of the platform. There are, of course, more functions that you can find, but mainly the alarms are important. So to see if some fault or error occurred at a specific plant. It's also possible to set up so that you get a notification when this happens. It's also possible to export all the data to Excel, and then you can work with the data in your own way and not have to visualize it here on the platform. And you can also have your organization account and sub-accounts and manage your whole organization there. And there's also a lobby overview, as you see here, so which could be nice to have in the lobby to show all installed plants and the total generated capacity and so on. Here are some communication devices. These are some, sorry for this, it should maybe more be single inverters here, not multiple inverters. These are different communication devices that you can add to the inverters. For the storage inverters, everything is included, so it's not really necessary. But for the grid tie inverter, as I said before, The CT90s can be connected directly to the DNS and the excess inverter to limit the power export. We also have smart meters. This is a single phase smart meter as well as a 3-phase smart meter to be used either for load consumption or to limit the power export. For load consumption for single phase inverter, we also have a additional unit. This is called the HomeKit 1000. And this one is not really directly connected to an inverter, which means that it can be used as a separate installation. So it's compatible with any system. It doesn't need to be a GoodWe inverter. It doesn't even need to be an inverter at all. It's possible to connect it to only a household or residential system where you just monitor the load. And then after a year, for example, knowing the load, then you can install the correct inverter and the PV sizing. Or it can be used in combination. Let's say there's already a existing inverter and then you want to add a battery inverter, then you can, for example, use this one. We are also launching soon a 3-phase inverter, a 3-phase HomeKit for three-phase, which will then also be useful in some residential applications. Here are to communicate with multiple inverters. Then you usually need to connect them all to one master unit to gather all the data. And from this one, it can then control the inverters. And here we have some different boxes, but mainly what's the most important one, I think, is this one, which is called the ETLogger Pro. This is for residential applications and also some CNI. It is good to maybe monitoring several inverters at once, can be used to mass update all inverters at once. And in case you want to connect a weather station or some additional sensors, this is the unit for that. The other ones, these ones are mainly for CNI and utility application. The SEC 1000, I think, is the most common. The other two are used for power line communication. And with this one, you can also realize export power limit for multiple inverters, and then you use third-party CTs. It's very common that some use the GoodWe CTs that are delivered with the residential inverters or the storage inverters, and then they try to connect it to this one with CNI in CNI applications, but those current transformers doesn't work with this one. For this one, you will need third-party CTs that has 5 amps on the secondary side. So this one for CNI and utility, and this one is for residential application. There is also one for storage inverters. It is actually the same as this one, but has a different kind of software. So it's called the SEC 1000S. That's the only different. And if I didn't, I think I mentioned before, to these two, you can connect up to 60 inverters to one of these data loggers. So usually in the system, you only need one of them. And now for the last quiz, and before we are done. So the first question is, to which GoodWe monitoring device can a weather station be connected? And I just explained this. This is also the data logger that is used for residential applications. And second question is, what is the GoodWe monitoring portal called? I hope all of you know this. You also needed to register there before doing the GoodWe Plus webinars. And up to how many inverters can be connected to either an ETLogger Pro or SEC 1000? This was also mentioned not only here, but also previously. And fourth question is, which device can be used for load monitoring independent of the inverter model or brand? And this one we also mentioned before. And this is at the moment, this device is only possible to use for single-phase applications, but in the future or very soon, we'll also launch a 3-phase version of this one. And the last one is if the SEMS monitoring portal is free of charge. So we'll give you a few minutes to answer the questions. And then also if you have any questions to us, feel free to let us know. And we now have some time to answer your questions. We have a questions of what new or refreshed products that are expected in the near future. Intersolar was just last week, and there we presented some of our new products. For those of you who missed it, I think we will try to cover this in the next GoodWe PLUS training. However, I can let you know some new products that we are expecting. First off, I mentioned the HomeKit 3000, which is the 3-phase version of the HomeKit 1000. This one will be launched pretty soon. We also have the batteries that we produce ourselves. So the Lynx Home U, the low voltage battery, it's actually ready to order already. So we just, I think last week we got the first batch to Europe, and this one will then be distributed. I think it's already sold out, most of it, but it's, as I say, it's ready to order. For the high voltage battery, this one will be ready in early next year. And additional products is we also have, I mentioned also the BTC, which is a battery inverter for a CNI application, so 50 kilowatt battery inverter. On Intersolar, we also displayed the hybrid version of that inverter, so the ETC. This is a 50 kilowatt hybrid inverter. Will have 1 MPPT and also has the possibility of peak shaving. Additional to that, we will also have some additional products, but I think it will be better to cover that more thoroughly in the next GoodWe PLUS webinar. And of course, regarding new products and such, I think most of you probably already are subscribing to our email newsletter. If not, you can send us an email asking to be put on this list. And this we send out once a month. And in case we have any new products that we want to communicate, we always put it in there. So for new products, launches and such, please keep an eye on our newsletter as well. And yes, I think most of you have answered the questions also for the last round, and this is then the last one and also the last chapter for this module. And the next module will be held on Thursday, and there we will look on how to commission our inverters. Okay, so thank you and see you on Thursday.